Hello, welcome tea fans out there. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us for another fabulous episode about tea. So, for those of you who are my university members watching right now, welcome. Thank you again for being a part of the university program. Hopefully, you've gotten a chance to go and look at the university channel. The university channel has a whole bunch of updated videos recently, especially for the resources on tea growing tea in your own pot, and also how to take care of your tea plants if you're going to grow it in an urban setting in a pot versus in the ground and with a lot of space. So if you're watching right now, say hello in the chat. I would love to know where you're watching from and what you're drinking today. So today we're going to be covering the Wu-Yi Big Red Robe. And this is a tea that is very, very famous. It's a famous oolong tea, but unlike some other more popular oolong teas, this is a more, I guess, original style of rolling that is very common, especially how oolongs were originally created. I mean, it wasn't on purpose that the oolongs were now the largest category of teas. And it wasn't like hundreds and thousands of years ago that they decided, let's make a specialty category of oolongs with 5 subcategories. In fact, oolongs were kind of like, there's different myths and legends about this, but some people say, oh, oolong, like just it's okay. It's kind of dirty. It's dark looking. Ooh, kind of. It's the Chinese culture type of thing where when you say oolong cha, it's like, oh, it's just oolong, like that stuff. And it's really funny because also in Taiwanese, where we have the oolong Oriental Beauty, it was named Oriental Beauty because it wasn't actually that attractive of a tea to look at to begin with. So they're like, how are we going to sell this tea? Let's name it Oriental Beauty. And so everyone started buying up this Taiwanese oolong called Oriental Beauty because apparently, I mean, it must have some sort of health benefits or makes you beautiful and young or it tastes lovely because, it's just okay looking. So that's one of the myths and legends of how Oriental Beauty in Taiwan got popular. Hello, hello. Thank you for watching. Now, I can't see your names on here. So if you want to write hello in the chat, I'll know who's watching and I'd be curious to know what you're drinking today. So in your university box, hopefully you got for level 2, your oolong teas. So in level 2, we will be doing professional taste evaluations, origins, rolling styles, aromas, and much more. So let me show you really quickly on our overhead camera what this oolong looks like. It's okay. It's not like that, shiny and beautiful, but it is an oolong tea, which is semi-oxidized, semi-fermented, and as we go through the processing of tea more in depth, it's in between a green and a black tea. So not super duper impressive, but I did weigh it out for 2.5 grams. I'm going to use my glass gaiwan here. Now, glass is great for a tea that you do not want to retain high temperatures for. And since it's an oolong, we're going to use more of like 195 to 190 degrees. Alexa, set a timer for 2 minutes.
2 minutes, starting now.
And we're going to steep this tea. Now, for Wu-Yi Big Red Robe, it's also called Da Hong Pao, or in Mandarin, which I don't actually speak Mandarin, it sounds very similar, which literally means big hong, red pao jacket. Big red jacket. And why it's called Wu-Yi is it's from the Wu-Yi Mountains in China. And the Wu-Yi Mountains are kind of this mountainous range. And if you've ever seen those beautiful pictures of China with those spiky, tall mountains, it's that kind of rock. And sometimes they call this oolong or oolongs from the Wu-Yi Mountain rock tea. And it's known for its mineraliness that you start to taste in the Wu-Yi oolong. Now, on the Wu-Yi Mountains, there are several types of oolongs that they make. So there's coxcomb, like a chicken, like little mohawk on a chicken. So that's coxcomb. There's water sprite. There is Wu-Yi Big Red Robe. I think there's one that's called Monk's Fist. There's a number of different styles of oolongs that they make off the Wu-Yi Mountain. And then when you taste the different elevations of like the base of the mountain, halfway up the mountain, or on the top of the mountain, those also change. So since this is a mountain with rocky cliffs that go straight up, or near the bottom is a little bit, more rolly, this mountain is what makes Wu-Yi oolongs all taste very, very similar. Hello. Say your name in the chat if you're watching, and then I'll know who is watching because I see Facebook user. So hopefully you're going to have this great treat of trying out this Wu-Yi oolong. Wu-Yi Big Red Robe oolong. Alexa, stop. Oh, hey, Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today. So now I'm going to decant my oolong, which is very, very hot. And since it has beautiful, huge leaves, I have like nothing in here to strain out. So I'm not going to cheat and use my little porcelain strainer. I don't need to. I will have very clear cup of tea. Cheers. And don't forget to appreciate the aroma of the oolong tea. Oh, I love this tea. I absolutely love this tea. But I just like oolongs in general. This will not be your floral, milky, creamy type of oolong. This will be very minerally robust, not bitter, not astringent, no dryness, but this nice, slightly, and when you smell it again, it's kind of interesting because it smells vegetal, but what's signature of a Wu-Yi Big Red Robe, it's almost like, does it remind you a hint of barbecue? As strange as it sounds, it is actually dried over charcoal. So in many places like in India and in China, places like forests will have wildfires, right? And they will collect, originally, before they started making charcoal, they would have these places that would have these dense woods, these dense trees, old age trees, and there'd be natural wildfires like there are all over the world, especially now with climate change, even more wildfires that happen through lightning strikes or whatever. So after the fire's gone, you'll have these dense pieces of naturally occurring charcoal, right? You can harvest this charcoal, I guess, like take it off the land and use it and repurpose it. So you have these dense trees and these dense woods. And this is also what I found in India is that because charcoal and heating sources are really important, some people will actually cause wildfires. So while I was in Darjeeling, I saw some man-created wildfires, which is totally illegal, not okay to be starting a forest fire just so you can get charcoal from the woods. So this tea is dried over charcoal fire. And so you get this little hint of like savoriness with the vegetalness. So you should totally try smelling the leaves. And unlike a Tikuanyin oolong or an Alisan oolong, it's not that traditional rolled ball technique that we showed in level 1 of the tea certification course. So let me show you what the leaves are going to look like. You'll notice that they are much more open and not as tightly rolled. And you might be like, oh, I guess I can't steep it that many times. It's so wiry. It's so big already. So you'll see that they aren't that tightly rolled. They were already chunky, and twisted looking to begin with. They're not scrunchy like a ball like you would find in a Ti Kuan Yin style or a ginseng oolong style. This one's a little bit more ball-like, but that's actually kind of unusual. They're usually twisted like this. This one still has more time to open up and steep, but this is almost what it looks like when you open the package and it looks dry. So definitely want to keep the aroma in there, the essential oils, so you can re-steep it multiple times. And as you can see here, let me put some more to compare what the dry leaves look like. They look pretty similar. Dry leaves to wet leaves look pretty similar. Long, twisted leaves. And you don't smell the vegetalness as much until you actually steep it. More of the vegetal notes come out from the heat extracting those essential oils, those aromas in there. All right. Yeah. Oh, someone just said in Turkey, they drink piping hot tea with very thin glasses. Yes. I mean, this is pretty thin too to begin with. So the Wu-Yi Big Red Robe, one of the legends has it of how it got its name is from a gentleman who was needing to study, to become a scholar. And he went into this small village to study. And of course, this small village, what did they have? Tea. Tea, of course. And they had their own special regional local tea. From those plants, those bushes, makes a certain type of flavor, the way that they process it. But every village is very, very proud of their tea. Well, this young man, he really, really needed to study because, you know, his future depended on it. And so the villagers would give him this tea from these local tea bushes and say, drink this tea. This tea will help you study and you'll be able to pass your exam. Well, the young man passed his examination, has, you know, plans for a bright future, and part of his ceremony, kind of like graduation gowns in the United States, is that you get this red robe. And red is a very lucky color in Chinese tradition. So in order to pay homage to thank the villagers and especially this tea plant that kept him awake and focused and concentrated and calm and all those wonderful properties that you know come out in good quality tea, he laid his jacket over the tea bushes, thanking them for making such a wonderful beverage to ensure his future. So hence, Wu-Yi Big Red Robe, Da Hong Pao. So that is the story of Wu-Yi Big Red Robe. It's one of my favorites. It's actually an amber oolong, so it's in the middle category of the 5 subcategories of oolongs. But as we dive deeper, and as you've compared to Darjeeling oolongs, to oolongs from Kenya, from Chinese ginseng oolong that rolled in a ball, or if you had Taiwanese oolongs like Oriental Beauty, or things like the Alisan, Formosa oolongs, and things like that. They all look a little different, and those rolling techniques will actually influence its final notes because of that bruising, that oxidation. So that's why there's such a huge variety in oolongs. They're not even all hand rolled the same way. And in places like in Mississippi, the Mississippi Tea Company, they hand roll oolong teas, but later on they got a machine, and it was like, at first it was just rolling it kind of like blades of grass, like just the same movement instead of a round movement. That round movement makes more of that rolled little nugget look that a Ti Kuan Yin oolong might be. But that horizontal, long, skinny, like you're making little Play-Doh snakes or something like that. That is a more of a traditional way that a Phoenix oolong or the Darjeeling oolong or this Wu-Yi Big Red Robe oolong would look like. And all the Wu-Yi's oolongs look relatively similar, that long, wiry look to them. That's very traditional of more of earlier style discovered oolongs. And when you look at the tradition of a white tea, which is picked and dried, to a green tea, and green teas like Mao Feng or other like wiry, thin, twisted ones, you'll notice there's this pattern, and even for black teas and English breakfasts, that they'll look twisted horizontally and not a nugget. That nugget look is more of a traditional style for oolong specifically, not for black teas usually. That nugget look has to do with circular rolling motion. So, if you think about the history and the evolution of tea, you'll notice that oolongs that probably were invented earlier will have that horizontal twisted motion to it because it's very similar from white teas to green teas to black teas, that rolled horizontal type of look versus a circular nugget. So, very, very interesting things to observe about history, culture, and possibly the process of making tea more easily versus more labor intensive. But how that particle size really changes the way of how many times the tea can be steeped, what kind of flavors come out in which steeping, and how tight or how fresh that tea can stay for a much longer time. So when we say we want a tightly rolled tea, a tea kuan yin oolong that's very tightly rolled will have a much longer shelf life than a Wu-Yi Big Red Robe. So all interesting notes to observations to make note of as you're going through level 2 in your professional tea tasting experience and journey. And also, I do have some great, great news. Oh, which flavor is the strongest? Well, which one's going to steep longer and have a higher extract? Those are all opinions depending on how you make that cup of tea, Teddy. So if some great news is we got approval of growing tea plants at the lowest temperature geothermal power plant in the world, which is actually here in Fairbanks, Alaska, where I live. So that's some great news. We took pictures of where our first row of tea leaves are going to go into the ground. So our first row of tea plants will be planted early this summer. For us, summer is May. So, but then the snow is definitely gone. The problem isn't that we can't plant right now, because it is currently 90 degrees and very humid in that geothermal power plant, which is outdoors on the ground with geothermal pipes running underneath it to keep the ground warm and this greenhouse warm. It's not that the greenhouse isn't warm enough. The problem is it is still 30 degrees outside here in Fairbanks, Alaska. And so even if we had our tea bushes coming to us from the south, they could possibly be injured because the transportation can't guarantee that they will stay warm. They might get frost nipped or damaged or frozen or anything like that. So we are waiting until it's a safer time for the tea plants to be transported outside through that transportation chain, not because our greenhouse and our location is not prepared. That one outdoor greenhouse is always about 90 degrees, like, other than the summertime, because we have 24 hours of daylight in Alaska. Then they actually open up the sides and ventilate it so cool air can come in. Otherwise, it would just keep cooking and retain its heat, even in the warm summer months, because here in Fairbanks, Alaska, it can get to 90 degrees in the summertime. So we have one of the largest temperature ranges in the world here in Fairbanks, Alaska. So we got the go ahead. We're going to plant about 45 plants this summer. And so Teddy will be getting some of your information who live here locally in Alaska if you want to order a tea plant. We don't have the pricing down or anything like that. I'm guessing they're going to range about $50 a tea plant. And but the rest of you, we can send you a referral link if you want to order your own tea plant online. But if we're going to order a pallet or two of tea plants that are much more mature, 2 to 3 years old, then anyone who's local here, we can just put it on that same shipment since we're already doing that. Now, when does level T start? So level two of the tea certification course starts actually next week. So we've sent 4 of the teas already for those of you in level 2 for last month. And then 4 more are going out today, including that crazy expensive Hawaiian black tea that smells absolutely amazing. That tea retails at about $2,000 a pound. It's very limited. We will not be selling it at Sipping Streams. There's not enough supply, and that's why the price is so high in order to get that out there. Now, it retails at $2,000 a pound. Now, how much are you going to get? You're going to get about probably 7 grams of this tea. And so you can definitely make a couple steepings of it. But if you're like some of the other members in the university, do not get so overly excited that you drink the tea before Andrea gives us a seminar about their tea plantation in Hawaii. Now, this tea plantation has just expanded to 14 acres. And so when people feel safe enough and people can travel to Hawaii, this is a tea farm, a tea plantation that you can go to actually and visit if you'd like. It is in Maui. So Andrea will be doing a talk and a seminar of how they created this amazing 2-time international award-winning black tea that has high demand from very, very high-end clients from all around the world. I put in my request for this tea in January. It is now April 1st. And we just got the tea because there was a delay in manufacturing, which is all hand rolled. Just to let you know, this is all hand done by Andrea and her husband. So besides this, we will also be learning about the local herb that's native and indigenous to Hawaii called mamaki. And you'll be also receiving 2 other teas that you'll need for level 2. So if you've passed level 1, you'll be granted access into level 2, and we will be starting level 2 next week. So I think it'll be next Thursday, we'll be starting level 2. Now, finalizing when Andrea is actually going to come on and be a guest, we haven't quite worked out right now because they're in the middle of tea growing season. April is a very, very popular time for harvesting tea around the world. March is too, the end of March. So depending what climate, what latitude people are at, this is actually a very hard time. So we had a hard time trying to get tea supplies and guest book in March. You might have noticed we had to give you supplemental materials and not go live in March and not go live with guest speakers because everyone's busy with tea manufacturing right now. So this is kind of the peak season around the world where people are manufacturing tea. But yes, what a dream vacation. Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Cheers to you and your family. Happy Easter. And also, don't forget, your teas will be coming very shortly. But here's the Wu-Yi Big Red Robe. Don't drink all of your teas, because you will need them for level 2 if you've gotten the level 2 box. Those of you on a previous level, that will come in the next wave for you. So thank you, everyone. We will see you again next time.